Here we go, take two. Hopefully this is gonna work. Oh God, bloody Instagram. This is such a nightmare. Every week there's something. He says that my name is not coming up at all. So anybody have any ideas why that would be? I am absolutely gobsmacked. Bonjour, ça va bien? Right, let me try, see if I can find him. No luck. Oh, Dan. Ah, I see you, Dan, I see you. I'm gonna do it. I think we're gonna do it. Fingers crossed. Waiting for actor Dan Payne. That means it's making a connection. Yeah!
So that is proof that I am old and technology owns me.
Oh, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Good. I'm so sorry for the debacle of technological failure left, right, and center there. My bad.
Don't be silly. I think it's become my trademark now. Every week there's always something. So, keeps everyone on their toes.
This is all me. This one is all me, Suanne. I cannot. Honestly, I'm like, this button, what? And then, oh my God.
I know you're like, I don't follow. I'm following. I was like, what? And the worst part is when you're in this conversation that we're in now, I can't see any of your messages. So I have to go out of the live to get it, which is a bit shit. But there you go.
I'm a bit shit at it. Yeah.
Anyway, how are you, my lovely? It's so good to see you.
You look absolutely stunning, let me start by saying.
Oh, thank you. You're not too dusty yourself.
And thank you for having me here today. Just so you know, just to be on the record, I smell great. My breath is good.
Excellent. So smell-o-vision is what we need next.
Well, I mean, I can't fix any of this, but I can pretend that I smell good, right? So.
Yeah, I have to say, lockdown looks like it's been treating you really well. You look great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I have a filter on.
I know. I love that. Do you know, wait, there are filters. Look, we could do something, and we need to get going in a moment, but check this out.
What's in your mouth? Wait.
Or that. Ding, 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 ding. Anyway, but we'll get back to normal.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch anything. I'm not touching anything.
You don't touch anything. You just listen and talk.
Okay.
Right. On that note, shall we jump on in?
I'd love to.
So you had a very nomadic lifestyle growing up because of your dad's work. You traveled a lot. And of course, this led to you and your siblings, your brother and your sister, being incredibly close. And I think actually led to a real kind of innate, a love of travel and a real sort of innate inner calm and confidence that you possess. Do you agree with that?
That's very kind of you to say. I do think that, first of all, traveling with my brother and sister and moving so much, we became the core of our best friends circle, and then we could just branch out from there. So no matter how far or how tough or how troubled anything seemed to be, we had that foundation to fall back on.
Yeah.
And I think that forces you to reflect on yourself, maybe at a lot younger age. I mean, if you ask my wife, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm just kidding. She's amazing. But I do feel like that forced me to look inside a lot sooner than I maybe would have. And that might be the calm and confidence that helped me also in my sporting career. But yeah, I'm really grateful to my family and my mom and dad too. They were the coolest, supportive. Like, they didn't force us or push us to do anything. I love sports, but they're never like, yes, you're going to do that. It was just like, do you want to do that? Great, let's do that. So yeah, I was grateful. We were a pretty tight knit nomadic group.
That's great. And where are you in the lineup of your siblings?
I'm the old one.
Right.
I'm the oldest.
So you get away with lots, I think, being the oldest one. Although I don't know.
No, I think it's the youngest who gets it all.
That's true.
I mean, everybody's perception is different, but I thought I was the kind of the trailbreaker, and I had to get it at least halfway right to set the bar.
Yeah.
And I did feel a real onus to set the bar. Like, honor roll student, nerd, proud to be nerd. Wanted to do well in sports. I just love sports. And then my brother came along and did a little bit better. And then my sister came along and crushed both of us into oblivion. She is unbelievable. Like, crushed us in grades. She actually played NCAA Division I basketball, went down to state. Yeah. Thanks, Kath, wherever you are.
So you're a sporting family, and actually sport in a weird way was your way into acting. You didn't have the typical route into acting. It was very circuitous, shall we say. You graduated high school. You had a slew of scholarships to choose from. You ended up going to the University of Calgary, playing for the Dinosaurs. Is that their team? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, the Dinos. Yeah.
Which afforded you lots of opportunities to travel Canada, and eventually took you across Europe, and you settled in Holland. So
Yeah.
what made you settle in Holland?
Well, it's similar to acting. You have to send over audition tapes, and you send over your highlight reel of your sporting achievements, and that's your audition for the team. And I got lucky that a Div 2 team in Holland said, sure, we'd like you to come out. They're only allowed 2 imports per team. And yeah, I jumped on the first one that said yes and enjoyed every second of it. And then my body got old. But yeah, it was a really wonderful, and it afforded me that, as you talked about earlier on, my love of travel. I know growing up that kind of spurred our family's love. My brothers lived all over the globe, and I have spent a fair whack of time bouncing around the planet as well. And it's just, it was a major boost to be able to actually get paid to play a sport I love and see, all of Europe. So that was cool.
Yeah, and I think in a way we don't realize it at the time, but travel is one of the greatest ways of educating yourself when you are younger, because it just opens you up to a whole world that's so different to what you grow up with. I mean, in your case, you moved a lot anyway, but I think all that sort of was fodder for later on and helped you draw on your many, many characters.
Well, I love the travel thing for the reflection of self in other cultures, other people, other worlds, just difference to see similarity, or if not difference, to become aware of difference for all the love and beauty that it provides. And I mean, I don't want to get too current and topical or political at all, but I'm grateful for the exposure to all the wonderful elements of the world through travel and through being in different cultures and parts of the world, to see the unbelievably beautiful mosaic that makes us all up. So I'm grateful, because yeah, I don't want to get political, but yeah, I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful.
I saw something really beautiful. I think Serena Williams posted it, and she said something about, we are one race, the human race. And agreed, I don't want to get political. There's no time anyway. We've got to be cut off after an hour. And like most people, so your sporting career comes to an end. And like most young people, you're a bit like, so now what? And you did something incredibly brave. You basically upped and moved to the other side of the planet, to Australia. What prompted that move?
My brother was living in Australia at the time, and it's funny, I got old fast, kind of, I wasn't always the most gifted athlete, but I definitely knew that I would be the hardest working. I was the guy who got to the gym first, left last, took the extra reps, just because I wasn't, like, I had a guy on my team in Europe who would literally be having a cigarette 3 minutes before practice started.
No. God.
And he'd flick it away and come in and just be unbelievable, like just innately gifted beyond comprehension. And I wasn't that guy. So it took its toll on my body a lot faster than maybe I had wanted, and I pay for it now, but no regrets. But when I retired a little bit earlier than I wanted to, I was a little bit lost, and I called my brother and I said, hey, now what? And he's like, well, I'm starting a company in Australia. Let's do it together. I'm like, I'll buy a ticket. I'll see you soon. So that was it. I'll just figure that out. Again, the nomadic thing, not that there's fear, but I welcome change. I enjoy it. Maybe not as much as I get older, and I have kids, so that's not as freeing. But I mean, they're the freedom to be with them, but the freedom to travel is not as much. So yeah, I welcome that change, and I was happy to pack everything I owned into a single bag and flop over to the other side of the world. That's
great. And you and your brother started a company where you were doing, amongst other things, stand-up comedy, acting, producing, writing. Stand-up, that's brave. I know, I've done it. So what prompted that?
You know what? I'm going to keep giving my brother credit where credit's due. So my brother is probably one of the funniest humans on the planet. Growing up with him was just, and my sister too, she's like the quirky funny, but my brother he sees the world as buttons, and he just knows which ones to press and how to get you to whatever it is. And most of the time it's laughter. And I mean, he could fire me up too. We threw down. But the joy of, so everything that we did was under the guise of photography. He had started a photographic concession company for resort islands, and we wanted to find ways to increase the number of photos. So we started doing shows. And one of the things that we did was start a stand-up show to welcome everybody and lighten the mood. And then we got an audience participation based on goofy skits that we had made to come up on stage and get more photo ops of the time that they were on stage. So as much as I want to take credit, I feel very comfortable in my performer skin, but the comedy skin, that doesn't sound right, but the comedy element of it is written by my brother. So I can perform the comedy. I understand the beats and the moments. My brother is the genius behind the humor. So as much as I want to think I'm funny, hopefully somebody does.
You are funny. And I mean, ha, not strange.
Yeah.
Although.
Little column A, little column B. He's the impetus for me to be confident enough, because it is scary. You are naked up there.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Every sense of the term, yeah. So congratulations to you, because I'm pretty sure you killed it. Mine luckily was in some little resort island in Australia.
Mine was in Cape Town the first time, and then I did it in LA. But yeah, it was really interesting because it was great until it wasn't. So like the first 5 shows I had were amazing. I killed it. They thought I was hilarious. And then I did the same material, but the crowd was totally different. They were all like sporting guys. They were all drunk. And everyone was just like, get off, you suck. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not ready for this.
These are happy tears. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, this is part of the act. No, you're crying. So you then decide, quite curiously, to go, okay, I am going to continue this acting thing. Actually, not curiously, geniusly, I think. You decide, because I think your brother decided acting was not for him, and he stayed in the photography realm. Is that correct?
I think more his entrepreneurial brain of building a bigger empire in order to make his own films took over, versus the actual performing side. And because I don't have like an affinity for business itself and growing a business, I was like, in the same vein that the comedy writing was his and the performance was mine, the building the business was his and the performing again was mine. I've always wanted to perform. So yeah, he continued to build the business, and I knew that I wasn't getting any younger. So I went over to the UK. To kick it off.
To London, baby. And you ended up staying here for about 5 years. Yeah,
just under, yeah.
So the business, certainly then, because this must have been like late 90s, early 2000s, round about there, maybe even earlier?
Yeah, mid 90s to, mid, late 90s, yeah.
So weirdly, I was in LA then. But like when I got here, because I spent 10 years living in LA via South Africa, and then came to London, and I just remember being, I had decent credits. I had a good agent in Los Angeles. I was with William Morris at one stage. I was like, they're a good agency, and I couldn't get arrested. The industry was very different here, and I think in the 90s even more so than it is now. I think now everything's much more similar. There's a kind of, streaming has changed the way we do our business.
Absolutely.
But what was your experience? How did you find that, living and working in London?
Well, I had no real experience other than my brother and I tripping all over ourselves, having fun and learning. The learning curve there was huge, but again, it wasn't professional. We were in control. We were the masters of our own destiny. And even if that destiny was a train wreck, we were okay with it. So I decided when I jumped into the UK realm that I would try the professional aspect, and I'd get the agent and audition and find my way through. And wow, I'm so glad I did the face planting over there, because it was, there was a shocking amount of learning happening in a great condensed amount of time. And had I done that, I think in Canada, and I didn't want to go to LA yet, like just from the foreign, nobody knows me pond of the UK, where I'm, just going to, and no offense, but I played big dumb American in almost everything I did. And I was grateful for it because it was experience. Any day on set's a great day is kind of my life motto. I wanted to come back to Canada with that experience, having done all the embarrassing face planting over there. Like walking into the first audition, like, could you just stand on your mark? I'm like, who's Mark? It was just awful. And would you mind slating? I'm like, slating?
What? Yes.
Like, you only do brickwork? I don't understand.
Keys?
Yeah. So I was just as green as it could get. So I wanted to have all that out of the way without it having an impact on the impression I made in Canada. And I'm so grateful I did, because when I came back to Canada, I had, I guess, again, thank you for that, calm and confidence to go into the best agency in Vancouver. And I went to the top 3 as my start. And if I didn't get them, I'd go to the next 3. But the very first one I went to, they called me back 3 days later and said, we'd love to sign you. And the rest is history. I never left. I've been with them for 20 years. That's
amazing. How extraordinary. And congratulations to them and you, because as you say, the rest is history. You arrived in Vancouver and you have literally, Dan, not looked back. I mean, when I started my work on you, which sounds a bit dodgy, you're like an onion. I was like, what's the best analogy? He's like an onion. You have so many layers, and several words. Yes, I don't know about that aspect, but so many times I was like, you are so versatile. Your resume is so varied. There are not many people who can do, drama, sci-fi, horror, comedy, Disney. So what I've done is I've basically, because we could be here all night if we covered all your credits. And so I'm just going to dip in and out of the things that I think would really be interesting for everybody, including me. So
before we dip, thank you so
yes.
much. That is a tremendous compliment. I am so grateful. And I want to throw kudos where they're supposed to. I've had an amazing support system. My wife has been an unbelievable source of support, because it is as you know, volatile.
Shout out to your lovely wife.
And the whole family unit. It's a volatile industry, and you can get beaten up and then lifted up and then beaten up. And my agent has been amazing, because I don't know that I fit. I mean, I'm kind of a half-shaved gorilla something. There's a whole bunch of, and I'm grateful for the peeled onion aspect, because I want to be able to adventure into I love adventure in any aspect of this industry. As I say, any day on set is a great day. So whatever I get a chance to do, I want to throw everything I can at it. And that's that professional etiquette that I learned trying to become an athlete. So anyway, we can dip, but I just wanted to say thank you for the amazing compliment.
Well, I think it's absolutely true. And I think what's been so extraordinary as well about your career is that all that versatility didn't get discovered immediately and in one go, because I think very often people don't know what to do with that. I remember when I was in LA, a brilliant casting director called Ronnie Yeskel said to me, you need to be careful, Suanne, because you're versatile. And people don't know what to do with that. They're a bit like, is she funny? Is she a leading lady? What is she?
And the answer is yes.
Yes, exactly. But our instinct as performers to go, yes, I'm all of those. But I think that very often the people making the decisions need you to fit into a certain box at a certain time. And what's been brilliant with you is that it's just ever so slightly, these layers have been peeled back. And every time you've walked in, you've got more experience, more confidence, that great, you've got this fantastic physical stature, which obviously you got cast for certain jobs right away because of that. But then you can also
cut you in and out.
So, so what was your very, very first role on screen?
So the very first professional gig I got, I played Osiris in a television series called MythQuest way back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was awe-inspiring just to go onto a professional set, and I didn't realize what I'd gotten into. And again, I think it was my physicality the first time that afforded me this job, to be a big emperor type. But I had to get a bald cap. And I think it was my introduction not only to acting, but prosthetics. And back in the day, they used something called gaff quad, which is basically cement for your hair.
I remember, yes. Oh.
Torture. But I'm always the guy who says yes first and figures it out later. Do you want to do that? Yep. Same with stunts. You're like, do you want to do that? Okay. All the way over there. Anyway, so they gaff quadded my head down, and they put this, and it made me bald. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can't believe this. So I was awed by the ability of this industry to turn me into something else. And then they tried to take the gaff quad out. It took 2 hours of torturous pain, like they were ripping my scalp off. But anyway, that's all good. For all of you wanting, they've changed it. It's not really gaff quad anymore. They do something else. But that was my first. So MythQuest, I came in, not too many lines, I think two lines, and really cool, elaborate costume and a bald cap. And the otherworldly side of it hooked me in. I was just like, this is my calling. This is my love. This is in my DNA. And I'm grateful for the recognition of the opportunity to realize that as my dream and pursue it.
Yeah.
So,
and sort of oddly prophetic, because Osiris being an Egyptian character, of course, and our Stargate rising from the depths of Egypt. You did a lot on the Stargate franchise. I mean, you played everything from a Cull Warrior to a Wraith to the big Wraith Commander. I mean, all sorts of things. Now, I think that your stature obviously contributed to some of that. The fact that you're physically very good with your body, you can move and you're willing to do stunts, as you said. But for a lot of these jobs, you were masked or prosthetic. You had prosthetics on, which is really interesting, because I was thinking when I was doing this research that it's like Commedia dell'arte, you know, where you have a mask on your face and the old traditional Italian theater, and you still had to convey the emotion. So firstly, what was your call time in the mornings with all that prosthetic going on?
Single digit morning times. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my therapist says I'm going to be okay with all the covering my face and stuff. He's told me that it's okay. So just wanted to. Yeah. So like 4, 5 a.m. because some of the like the Uber Wraith took 5 hours, and you know, the transformation. I'm getting a little bit older now, and maybe not so much, but when it was happening, it was like intoxicating to watch these artists convert me into a badass alien or all these different creatures and characters. So it was pretty, but yeah, that's a lot of time in a chair.
And was it harder working with the prosthetics on, or did you actually find that quite liberating?
Liberating. Absolutely liberating. There's no precedent set for a big green badass alien where you have to honor something that everyone understands so much, like human element, that we're trying to tap into the universal truths of sadness and anger, but a green alien can experience things that are completely unique. That's a whole other world, and I love being able to play and create with producers and directors' influence in that world. There was, you know, we can pull from normal life and humanity, and you know, okay, so he's kind of a bit badass biker, but also there's a disconnect because humans are more like food, and so there's an animalistic, okay, cool, you know, and you just get to, and there's no precedent set. That's a pretty unique creature, monster, whatever it is. So you get to play, and that is what a gift.
And was every costume completely tailored to you, or did they have a sort of set look for the various creatures you were playing, and then they would adapt a costume for you? Or what, were they like, Dan, we want you for this, and this is going to be built around you specifically?
Well, the first time ever I got Cull Warrior, I think, was the big first one, and they molded the whole thing to my entire body. So it was fitted to me. In that respect, it was wonderful and comfortable. As much as it looked uncomfortable, it was great. And then they started bringing me back, which was very, you know, comforting and honorable of them to bring me back without auditioning, going, hey, now you're going to be this big green guy. I'm like, awesome, you know. And they got to the point where they allowed me like little tiny things like, oh, can you have a scar here? And they're like, oh yeah, let's go talk to somebody. So that was kind of neat, because it felt, I mean, I'm honored in any respect, but to be a little bit more collaborative in that way, which that whole Stargate group was such a, like from top to bottom, such a great family of people.
It was one of the questions I was going to say. I've talked a lot with all the guests who've worked on Stargate about this incredible feeling, this familial, friendly, warm feeling. And you've just said it. I mean, the question was, did you experience that too? And yes, you did.
110%. Like, to get the call from my agent to say I'm going back to a Stargate thing, which I used to joke I make a living dying on that show, but it was just excitement. And not so much, I mean, yes, about the booking, and yes, about the prospect of providing for my family, but primarily with Stargate, to go back and just hang out with that unbelievable group. Amanda Tapping was one of the first people I met, and she gave me a hug and said, welcome. Like, how phenomenal is that lady that she can sort of, and I was young and green, and she just, I swear she has an ESP about that or something, where she just went, I'm gonna put him right in the right headspace, and I just love that lady.
Yeah, I agree. And she's, you know, she sets the tone. She's a class act. She's at the top of the totem pole. And I remember my first day, she came bounding over, knocked on my trailer door. And I was kind of like, oh, and I opened the door and she went, hey, I'm Amanda. Same thing, big hug. And she's like, welcome. So great to have another woman on set. Because of course I was in it so, you know, like 150 years ago.
Me too.
So I just think I look really ready to cheat. It's quite hot in here. So anyway, sorry about that.
You look amazing. I don't know.
I've been drinking. Now you've done a lot of your own stunt work and stunts. You go, is that gin, darling? No.
I'll never tell.
Yeah, I'll never tell. No, it's water. So you've done a lot of your own stunts, but I really love what you've said time and time again in interviews, that you are not, well, you have a really lovely thing that you say about stuntmen and women. And I'd love you to share that if you know what I mean. If not, I can prompt you.
I think so, yeah. So I'm not a stuntman. I'm an actor who's been very fortunate to get to do stunts. There's a difference for me because stuntmen spend their lives training to make what we actors shouldn't, couldn't, or wouldn't do look spectacular, wonderful, flawless, and seamless.
Yeah.
And to be able to delve into that realm because of my physical and athletic history and the kindness of them to give me that opportunity. I never want to negate the fact that I don't want to ever claim to be a guy who's trained to do what they do to the level that they do. I've been given the opportunity to do stunts that are within my realm of capabilities, but they do things that are beyond comprehension. And I've seen it, watched it, and I'll never forget how much people need to understand that stuntmen are mind-bogglingly brave, physical superheroes. And and I never want to, like, if somebody says a stuntman, there's a little part of me that feels the pride of being associated, but I never want to take that credit without, you know, the caveat saying thank you. But unfortunately, I'm more an actor who gets to do stunts versus the stuntmen who are those brilliant superhumans. So
yeah, but I love that.
Is that what you meant?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you have such respect and love for them. And rightfully so, because very few actors do give credit, I think. So I really love that. With a fight, you had a huge fight with Jason Momoa. How long?
And then we went to set.
Yeah. Yeah. There was comedy bones kicking in. And so how long does a fight like that take to choreograph?
Well, we get to do a couple rehearsals. Jason Momoa, as the whole entire world knows, is just a gifted beyond comprehension. Like, he's just, whatever you want him to do, the jerk is amazing at it. And he's not even a jerk. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
He's also a sweetheart. God, I just want to punch him right in the face. So they give us like an hour, and sometimes, because Jason was so, you know, integral to the show, he didn't get to come for the rehearsals. He'd have to fill it in between breaks. So I get all the choreography down for about an hour or two with some stunt guys that are stand-in, and then I go to set, and that's Jason's unbelievable nature. We would then do his piece that he did by himself, my piece, and then we try and meld the two together so we looked like we knew what we were doing. And he was never against rehearsing, and I wanted to rehearse it right up till the second they said action, because I want to get it right. I want to also honor the stunt guys who definitely would get it right, but I'm representing them at this moment, and I want to get it right. So we rehearsed the living beans out of it, as you know, people are coming in doing touches, and we're going through the fight beats. And yeah, that one didn't take quite as long as some of them, but it was probably 2 hours rehearsal and then a good solid hour on set prior to going at it.
Wow. And so that also physically is very demanding. I mean, you have to be, you know, an athlete and in shape to do that, I think.
Yeah, well, Glenn Ennis, who's Jason Momoa's stunt double, specifically on that day, should have been in the hospital, but he just gets up and asks for a couple Advil and keeps at it. And I'm like, yeah, but I think your leg's on backwards now. Yeah, that'll fix itself. Okay.
Remarkable. Your first job not your first job, but your first kind of series regular role post Stargate was in a fantastic family sitcom, Alice, I think. Did you enjoy flexing your comedy bones again?
I couldn't have been happier. Again, the set was about an hour and a half from my house, and you know, called around 6:30. So I'm getting up at 4:35 o'clock in the morning, and not that I didn't get up with a smile every time I had a job, but there was a little extra grin going on because it was comedy. And yeah, some of the most fond memories ever. you know, to be able to go and do that on a regular, as a series regular, to be able to go every day and get that experience and work your chops and have fun.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite things in the world are when you're doing a scene and the dolly grip can't hold back his laughter and he ruins the take. That's not a ruin for me. When they laugh and we have to go again, that is such comfort to me that I made somebody laugh, that we're in the right vein, that this might actually work. It's actually confidence building. You know, there's a few people who are like, oh, here we have to go and start over. Because I'm like, no, that guy just made me feel good that what we're doing is funny. And
Exactly.
so, and he'd come over and say, you know, some of them would come over and say, hey, sorry about that. I mean, it's just really funny. I'm like, dude, I just give him a hug and say, never stop doing that. Never.
Yeah,
know?
it's so important to have that, because you don't always have that feedback when you're on a set, apart from people who naturally laugh. And it's, as you said, it's such a boost, because you're like, yes, I'm doing it right.
Yeah, because otherwise, between, like, if they're being uber professional and containing it, and then they're just doing their job, and then you're just hoping that what you do there eventually translates to screen. But if it's laughter right in the immediate, it's like theater or stage. If you get that immediate response, you're like, I must be onto something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or my fly is down, whatever.
Exactly. I don't think that would be funny. You worked with Amanda again and with Martin Wood on what's it called? Martin Wood on Sanctuary, right?
Oh, Sanctuary and Primeval.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So was that lovely going back into that kind of family environment? Because I know you worked with Martin Wood again later on in your career.
Martin is the most fun kind of crazy you'll ever be directed by. He's if you ever get a chance, you should see his director notes in his book. Like, they're literally child drawings of dinosaurs, and I don't know how he makes films out of it, but he's just like, he's a savant. He's another level, I think. But to go back to your thing, Amanda tapping, that peace and comfort from seeing her face in whatever, to be directed by her, to work with her. I filled in for a guy who couldn't make a day on set, and they asked me, would you just come? It's not a big job at all. It's not anything, but can you just do it? And I'm like, oh, it's with Amanda tapping. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been every single time that I see their names or I know that they're showing up. And that's one of the beauties of being old, I guess, in this industry, is that those relationships.
Not old. I'm older than you, so enough of the old.
You don't look it. That's the difference.
Well.
So
good
to
lighting.
See those, yeah, filter. So those faces, just always, to have built those relationships and see those faces, just automatically, I guess, peels a layer of the onion off of getting to the place where I want to be for that job, that set, that day.
Yeah. And I think also there's something about your willingness to kind of jump in and do stuff that makes other people then go, the people that cast you and make the decisions, go, do you know what? He's great to have around. He's willing, he can do the job, let's hire him again.
I hope so.
Well, definitely. I mean, I was saying, you've done a ton of sci-fi, fantasy, including Battlestar Galactica, Travelers, Primeval, Supernatural, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow. Some of those we're going to come back to. But in 2008, you completely changed tack in Mulligan's, where you played a closeted gay man in a marriage who ends up falling for his son's best friend. And it also garnered you a Leo nomination for Best Lead Actor. So tell us a little bit about that audition process and how that job came your way.
That came about in a very unique way. I was going to this cold reading series, it was called, where new scripts could get put up and they would just pick actors to read different roles to an audience to get feedback to shape their script. And I happened to get to read Nathan in this Mulligan script. Mm-hmm. And I immediately fell in love with the story and the wonderful arc that this character went on just in reading it. And I didn't think anything of it, but it engaged me from the second I read it at the cold reading series. And then 2 years later, I got a call from the guy who wrote it, who was in fact also producing it, and said, do you remember reading this script? I'm like, oh yeah, how did that go? And he's like, it's gonna go, and we'd love you to play Nathan.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but also unbelievably scary, because I felt a huge responsibility as a young actor, young in my career, actor, to carry a story with that much integrity and that much worth in storytelling at the green level that I was at. I'll rise to any challenge, and I'm really, like I said before, like, do you want to? So I did the and then started to panic a little bit, but only because I hadn't done my homework. But that and what a huge launch for me to go from, you know, a little bit of here and a little bit of there on different shows as I'm starting out, to this indie feature with what I considered one of the most important roles of my career. And I still to this day am unbelievably proud of the work that everyone did on that show and the story that it became and the impact it had on the community that it was intended for. Because the fan base I have from that movie is still vibrant and wonderful, still sends me messages. That movie still garners me compliments from people who've just found it. And
well, I imagine it probably speaks to a certain section of the population that may find themselves in similar situations or find themselves with a family member in a similar situation. And I think absolute kudos to the filmmakers for going against what was then perceived your kind of natural casting as the like good looking jock. Not that you know what I mean, you're still good looking, but this tall strapping, it was an interesting choice. Yeah, that's exactly the look. So what was the most rewarding thing, would you say, from that job? Just the fact that you still are in touch with people, or people still reach out to you now?
To be able to be a part of something that just explains and solidifies that love is love.
Amen.
That was the greatest journey for me as a human and as a character and as a story, was just to really be able to embody and absorb the concept that love is love. And then it's hard enough to find, period. Like that connected love that lifts you up. And love is love. Just if you find it, hold on to it. Don't choke it out. Don't strangle it, but hold on to it, because it's hard enough. So love is love. And I was just so beyond comprehension. I cannot explain to you how, when I get those emails, I almost get teared up when I hear, like, thank you so much for sharing a story that related to my life, that allowed me this or that, or made me feel. I think our job as storytellers is to help people feel or wow. I don't know. I don't want to get too far. I don't might get emotional, but it's just, I loved being a part of that story for that reason.
Great. Still. Perfect answer. So we're going to switch tack completely and talk about Watchmen. You have a really cool audition story, although it's similar now that I know to Mulligan's in a weird way. Tell us your audition story for Watchmen.
So with Watchmen, I was very fortunate.
You played Dollar Bill, right?
Dollar Bill, y'all. Yeah. So I Michelle Allen, casting director, she's fantastic, very stoic, she has a lot of clout, and she asked me to be a reader, and I was like, wow, yes, please, because being a reader is the inner sanctum. A lot of learning happens in it. And
not just that, I think it should be mandatory for every single actor to do it, because you learn so much when you're on this side of the table and actors walk in. Like stuff that I never even thought about as an actor. You know, in the sense that I think sometimes when you're nervous, you go into an audition, you're like, they hate me, everybody hates me, they're all out to get me. No, they want you to be amazing.
They need you to win.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then you'll get some, dickhead who's a bit like, but 9 times out of 10, yeah, exactly. 9 times out of 10, they're willing you on and they want to make it right and calm you. And I saw amazing actors when I was a reader and when I've worked as a reader come in and through sheer nerves talk to themselves and everyone else in the room out the job. Because they were like, I'm not normally this nervous and I'm hungover or I'm sick or whatever. It's just like,
I just got this late. I didn't have enough time. I'm so excuses.
Exactly. Just do your job. Anyway, sorry. So you were asked to be a reader.
Yeah, so I got to be a reader and got to meet Zack Snyder. Like Zack was there, and what a wonderfully casual, cool, chill guy he was. So he's bringing these actors in and he's making it comfortable. And as we all know, some of the roles I think they were casting as a search for talent for other roles, as much as they were, maybe for that main role. But he was really cool about helping actors along, and he was very kind with me about how, you know, hey, you're really supportive of the actors and very helpful. And I'm like, oh, thanks. You know, like I'm just trying to do my job. That's kind of my job. And, you know, in the interim, with that relationship, we started playing Dixie Cup football in between actors or when there was breaks and just goofing around because he's that kind of guy. And at the end of it, I was driving home and Michelle Allen called me and she said, hey, Zach was just wondering if, you know, if you wanted to be in the movie. It's not a big role, really. It's not, you know, but he just really thought you'd be physically right and he liked you a lot. And I'm like, the answer is yes, but what is it? You know, like it's a rock. I'm going to play a rock. I'll do a rock.
Sure.
But it happened to be Dollar Bill, one of the Minutemen prior to the birth of the Watchmen. And just to have a named character in Zach's film after having met him was yes, please, before she could finish the sentence. Yeah.
And another thing, when they remake Robin Hood, you're a shoo-in because you look good in green tights, honey.
I don't know. This quarantine COVID thing, I've been crushing the Doritos at an alarming rate. Let's just say.
Oh, I think everyone in lockdown is sort of gone. It's expanded a little bit, but never mind. I think we're allowed.
I'm going to get a thank you letter from Doritos saying thank you for single-handedly supporting our industry.
I'm looking at the time and I'm like, I can't remember what time we started because we came back on. If anyone knows the time, can you just send me what time we came on?
I'm okay to come back on if you want to quickly because
Awesome. We might need to do that just for like 15 minutes just to get through the questions. That's great. And then we can relax. Sure. In 2011, you stepped away from the big budget action sort of sci-fi fantasy film. Whoops, sorry, somebody's trying to email me. There we go. And you did a web series called Divine. Really interesting, 4 episodes. Tell us, I have a few questions, but firstly, tell us about Divine and who you play.
I was an immortal seeking redemption named Divine. And back in the Spanish Inquisition, they had done wrong and were punished with immortality. Mm-hmm. And I believe my character's whole entire intention was that he felt his redemption would come from ridding the world of the evils, and therefore he would gain the right to shuffle off his mortal coil. And the story behind these, the entire story behind this series, written by Ivan Hayden, Kirk Jakes, and I don't want to forget, but Ivan Hayden was the main force behind it. The storylines were spectacular. Just inspired question after question of history, religion, purpose of being, existence. It was just phenomenal. And we didn't get the full run that we had wanted. This was almost a teaser series that they had started. But I'm telling you, I would love to revisit that guy as long as he's immortal, so he can't age. So let's hurry, guys. Hurry.
Well, CGI, honey, CGI.
Right.
I was going to say, actually, it was interesting, and I wonder if because it was a web series, because that at the time people weren't streaming like they are now. I mean, that was all still quite new then. Were you aware of that being a completely different format, or was it just the same, being on a set, working, doing your job?
Once we got there, it was just exactly the same thing. Just get there and create the best possible piece of art that we could. But, you know, like Quibi, the new Quibi thing, I think it would have been ideal for that sort of format. Yes, people are now very much streaming, and I think it might have just gone a bit earlier. But they explained to us that this was the intention, was to put it on the web to garner interest or investment to put it on TV, because it was a bit outside the scope of normal, you know, executives censoring, like, oh, it's too strange, too out there, too religious, too whatever. So they wanted to show the concept and go, this is amazing. And it was. And then, but it was just, I think it was before its time.
I think, absolutely. I was going to say, thematically, it's quite dark and tackles some big issues. I think whenever a network sees religion, they're like, whoa. But I really applauded it for that. You know, I watched it a little bit and I was like, God, this is really interesting stuff. And I mean, when you approach something like that, playing an immortal, you know, this is not something you can just be like, Google, how do you approach roles like that? Do you work from the outside in, or like, do you find the walk first, or do you find it's better to work inside out, or both?
I really like to, my favorite thing is to go to the creator of the character. First and foremost, and sit down and have the longest possible turn on the light in every dark corner questionnaire, back and forth conversation. And then I take all that information and go away, and I try and go from the inside out. I try and find out what all that stuff related to for me inside, and try and bring it to the outside. And there was that was a warehouse of information from them. I was almost overwhelmed with the amount of story that they had prepared in terms of religious aspects, life purpose, you know, reasons for existence. But it was I think, to put it in one phrase, it was from the outside in, but not without a ton of guidance. What I love about collaborative stuff is that the people who have the creative juices behind it and are trusting you to bring it to life through your creative filter, when you can work together and you both get to a place where you're like, yes, then that's the joy for me. That's the creative collaboration that gives me the confidence to go out there and create it with the support of them.
Yeah.
So I guess, does that answer what was the question? Where am I?
The question was just how you approach your work, and that, yeah, it's a perfect answer.
It changes though, Suanne. It does change, different roles, different aspects, but that was definitely a talk myself blue and then go inside out.
Yeah, great. Well, it worked. And where can people watch the series? Well, I watched it through the company Frostbite Films, I think. Yes, it's on their website for anyone who hasn't seen it and wants to watch it. Next up was the horror film A Cabin in the Woods, starring Chris Hemsworth, and you played a zombie, so back in the prosthetics. How was that, stepping into Joss Whedon's world? I know he didn't direct it, but how was that experience?
Drew Goddard directed it, but Joss Whedon was there, so got to meet him. Actually, Chris Hemsworth, you know, I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, whatever happened to him?
Oh, I know. So handsome, so much potential.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you can I try and scramble through a couple of funny things? So for me, the funniest part is I work with him for like 2.5 months in character. I get to be pretty chummy with him and hanging out because we're, you know, chasing each other and doing all the things. We go to the wrap party and I walk up and I go, "Hey, Chris, it was an absolute honor to work with you." And he goes, "Oh, great. Sorry, who are you?" I was like, "Oh, that's right. You never saw my face."
Oh God,
so
yes.
I was in prosthetics before anyone arrived and getting out of them after everyone had gone. So he never knew. So it was kind of nice. And my wife said the only good thing I did in that movie was get her a hug from him. So I'm just kidding. I wanted a hug from him too. Look at him. He's ridiculously handsome. Yeah. But so there's that. And Joss Whedon, after we had been doing a lot of work, we had to do movement workshops and whatnot. I got to see Joss Whedon at Craft Services, and he said, "I got to tell you, I love what you're doing." I feel, right?
Yeah, really.
So like the donut fell right out of my hand, and it was it's probably funny to watch a zombie eat a donut. But anyway, it was just what an experience. Like, huge film. Joss and Drew, very specific ideas for what was going on, and very demanding, like physically for everybody in that movie.
Yeah.
Very demanding. Long hours to get. I don't know, just a great experience all the way around.
And lots of night shoots, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's very demanding anyway, and then chucking a prosthetic and a scary film and everything else. So
survive.
Yeah, exactly. And you followed that up with a slew of big blockbuster films: Underworld Awakening, Warcraft, and Star Trek Beyond.
Creature.
Yeah, exactly. Well, interestingly, I was going to say you were masked again, or prosthetics for all three. But I wondered if you can give us a little insight into what it's like walking onto like a huge film like that, because there is a very different feeling, I think, when you're working on I've never worked on a blockbuster like that. So how was that?
You know, it doesn't change too much in terms of set and set decks and people, but the names of the stars, I guess, get a bit more obvious. Mm-hmm. Being a part of, for each of those, there was a stunt element and a physicality element. So I got to be on set without that immediate filming pressure, because we were doing rehearsals for so much beforehand. And we got to kind of be slowly introduced to, like, I don't know, people like small names, Kate Beckinsale, whatever, Chris Hemsworth, whatever. Just you should look them up if you don't know. They got to come by and say hi, and it was very informal. It wasn't like hey, show up and perform now, and if you suck, you're gonna ruin my film. It was very much a nice slow introduction. So I think it was not as much of there's a couple times where I've shown up on set and gone okay, game face, and I go back to my athletic background and the history. Like when I got to, you know, represent, and you hear the anthem and you're like, wow, this is real. You have to contain and go into your get it done mode. Go back to fall back on your training, fall back on your process. And that's sort of the same thing for acting. But yeah, it was pretty mind blowing. Yeah. And you know what the biggest thing I think, Suanne, is the fact that you do maybe 1 page a day.
Yeah.
Of a script.
Yeah.
Like a Hallmark, you're crushing out 12 to 14.
God. And how did it feel stepping into this kind of epically beloved franchise? Like the Star Trek is, you know, that whole franchise is so loved. And the world of J.J. Abrams. I mean, that just must have been extraordinary as well. Or were you quite nervous about tackling that?
No, I mean, again, I was not hiding behind the mask. That's not the right word. But I felt the comfort of knowing that this is a creature and there's no precedent set. So I'm really open to shaping this with whomever, the director, the creature creators, whoever it is. I'm ready to go wherever we need to go to make this work. So that part was a little bit removed in terms of fear. But the big thing for Star Trek is that my dad and I grew up watching Star Trek back in the James T. Kirk, you know, way back in the day. And that was kind of one of our things. So to actually be on the series, there's a nostalgic kind of neat connection there. So that was a kind of honoring past to present kind of connection that I enjoyed. And I didn't feel too much pressure. I knew that there was a physical element, there's a creature element, and I was just going to drop in and do what I do. Yeah.
And what a great experience to sit and watch all these amazing actors at work and be a part of that.
Carl Urban,
on their level.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying, to watch, you know, you get to be a sneaky spy in some ways. Because as an alien, you know, often as a peripheral character and stuff like this, a very peripheral for Star Trek, I got to sneakily watch them do their thing and try and take notes. It was like a master class. Idris Elba, I know why he's brilliant. I got to see it firsthand. No two takes are the same. He is exploring it every second of every moment, all within the context of the scene and the character, but he's exploring it every second of the thing. Oh, shit. It was, and I got to interact with him. There was a part where he cuffed me in the head, and they didn't keep it in the film, but I stand up to him. I'm a big alien. I'm meant to be a security officer, and he comes into the prison, and I better do my job. I stand up and challenge him, and he just buried me. And it wasn't on the script. He just batted me in the head, and I cowered down, you know, staying in character, like, oh shit, across the line. And it was amazing. Like, it was just, I don't know about you, but that euphoric state of connecting to somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Like I always liken it to when you throw a ball, whether it's on stage or in screen, and you look at the other person's eyes and they catch the ball and throw it back. You know, sometimes they drop the ball or they just go, I'm not catching that ball. Stuff you know. So it's such an amazing feeling when everybody goes, yeah, and it's reciprocated.
That's the drug.
Absolutely. That's the thing that keeps us coming back. Speaking of beloved franchises, in 2015, you were cast as Beast in The Descendants, now King Beast. Hugely popular, helmed by the brilliant Kenny Ortega. Tell us a little bit about the rehearsal and the audition process for that.
The audition process was very fun. I was just coming off a show, and they had done a few rounds to try and find their beast, and they hadn't, so they're having one more round. And I couldn't get to the first couple because I was filming and working. And I know you've been there too. You're like, well, whatever, missed opportunities. It's just the nature of the world. So I got in. I scrambled in literally on the last day of filming and rushed over to audition and met Kenny Ortega. And the audition had a comedy element to it, and I felt really comfortable with that. So I played around and goofed, and I felt like Kenny responded immediately to that. And I was like, oh, that could be cool. Yeah. Went home not knowing. And then I booked it and realized, holy poop sticks. I'm now supposed to try and bring to life a classic Disney character in this somewhat new incarnation. And I started to, need diapers, I guess, because that was scary.
Oh no! I think you froze. You froze for a second. So you were saying you panicked.
A little bit of a panic, because that's a classic character with an unbelievable history, and I'm now supposed to bring it to life in this incarnation. And I was just saying how I was borderline in need of diapers for the amount of fear that was going through me. But again, the production team and Kenny were so good at just this is our beast for our show in this world, and we'll honor as much as we can, but it's for this. So I felt, you know, comfort and a support there. And then I got to set, and it was about these kids.
Yeah.
So it was wonderfully
so talented
in every way. Sing, dance, act.
Yeah.
They're good
Triple
humans.
threat.
They're philanthropists. They're amazing. And and to know that I was just there to support them, that was nice. Also, you know, I am a father, and this character was a father figure, and I felt as I got to know them through rehearsals that I became almost fatherly to them. I felt an onus to look after them, you know, which was wonderful. It helped me feel like I fit in, especially when they started dancing. I'm like, I can't do that.
I was going to ask you, you did have to dance, didn't you, in it? And how was that?
Well, the choreographers were world class. They differed between, they changed each movie, but they were world class, and they were so generous and kind to let us find our way, and they were supportive and just genius in bringing it out of us. Keegan, Connor, Tracy, and I got to be Beast and Belle, and we got to do all our dances and scenes together. And they gave us an ample amount of time, like it was 3 weeks to learn like 2 moves, I think, but maybe a little more than that. But it was just, I spent a lot of my days watching these 5, 6 lead kids just crush it, and it was awe-inspiring. So yeah, I felt like I had to step up. Yeah.
Well, I think you have.
Well, and just to say, Disney Descendants, thank you. I owe most of my fan base to that franchise and those wonderful fans. So thank you. And yeah, I'm honored to have been able to step into those shoes, and hopefully I filled them all right.
Well, I would say you did. And absolutely, I was going to ask you if it's brought you a whole new legion of fans, but clearly it has. Is there any chance there could be a Descendants 4? I mean, I know one of the boys passed away very, very tragically.
That was a tough, yeah. He was a special human, that kid. Anyway, yeah. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I'll just move on quickly so I can stay present. They pre-world imploding COVID stuff. They were discussing the possibility of an event type, maybe reunion. I don't know where it's at. Again, the world imploded, and I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do there or what they are intending to do. I would jump back at the chance to be in that world for sure, but we'll see.
If it was a stage musical, do you think that would you be interested in doing that? Anything on stage, or 8 shows a week?
I can't sing, Suanne, so yeah.
That kind of scarf that idea.
Kind of puts a kibosh on that. Yeah, I was really nervous when they're like, it's a musical. I'm like, come
say what now?
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm getting the countdown, and I have just a few more questions, and obviously some wonderful fan questions. I don't know if everyone, the 3 questions that are down here, we're going to have to jump off and come back on. So if you guys, whoever sent the questions, can redo them, I'm sorry. But let's hang up, and then I will pick up when we come back, if that's okay. Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
I would love to. I'll be back right.
Fantastic. I'll see you in a second, everybody. We'll see you in a second. Right, here we go. Part 3, epic. Let's see if we can get this to work and carry on with the questions. Thank you very, very much for joining us. David, you are the first person in the room. Hello. So if you're just joining us for the first time, Dan and I had a slight issue connecting. We've done pretty much an hour, and we are now going to carry on. Lovely. There, I see he's got it. We're going to carry on with the questions because we're almost at the end of my questions, but then I'd love to hand over to you guys because I'm sure you have questions. Hello, thank you for coming back.
I heard you say that Dan and I had, but it was just Dan who had the problem. So thank you, Suanne, for trying to take half that bullet. But
no, don't worry. You haven't seen some of the other shows. It's not. What's
right.
So annoying is that every time I do it on my own, or I practice, or I explain it to my guests, because several people haven't done it before, it works like a charm. When Gary Jones was on here, I mean, honestly, it was like the blind leading the blind, and I was like, Anyway, we have got a little bit better as the weeks have gone on. So,
well, I don't want to miss saying thank you so much for having me on here. I'm honored. I'm so great to see your beautiful face and chat with you, because we're worlds apart sometimes, and I've always loved and respected you, and it's so great. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure it is so far, and it continues to be. And thank you for saying yes and for putting time aside in your day. I mean, I know people aren't going to work, but still life carries on, and you've got kids at home and a wife and everything. So thank you to your family as well for stopping your day and letting me interfere in it for an hour or so.
I'll just show you quickly. I'm going to flip my camera to show you the torture that I'm going through. Let me see.
Oh, the hell. The absolute hell.
I know.
Oh, that's not fair. Right, carrying on. So, as I said at the top of the interview, you have so many wonderful layers and huge versatility, from sort of action hero, Men in Tights, comedy, dramatic lead, Divine, where you're a very intense character. The other world that you've kind of become a regular on is the world of Hallmark. You're a Hallmark hottie, Dan.
Well, thank you.
And I wondered, what, in your opinion, is the thing that makes Hallmark so popular and their films so popular?
Well, Hallmark they found a genius way to reach out to the niche audience, which is a broad audience, but it's still pretty niche. And I think the core of it is because their shows are based in hope and love. Yeah. And if you can start from that place, even when you get an audition to prep for it, and know that even if something's struggling, like one of my favorite Hallmark experiences was A Time to Dance with Jenny Garth. And it was about us falling apart and having fear of divorce, and recognizing that we should get divorced in our minds. And then, through hope and love, found our way back together. And yeah, that just works. Like, the world needs that. Life can be hard enough, and to be able to escape to a place where hope and love is the core, I don't know if you can go wrong. So every time I get a chance to play in the Hallmark world and escape maybe some of the daily woes, I'm in. Remember? You want to go?
No, I absolutely agree. And they adore you. I mean, you've done a lot of work for them. And they're a lovely company to work for. I've worked for them as well, and I've only done one film for them, but just really beautifully treated. That feeling of warmth and family again kind of trickles down, down all the layers, I think.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your experience on The Good Witch, which of course is an evergreen series and is now getting an entirely new audience through Netflix.
So, nice. Yeah.
You're on Netflix too, baby.
Yay! Well, Catherine Bell is a gem, absolute sweetheart, and the same like Amanda Tapping. I showed up. I'm meant to be her boyfriend, love interest returning, and that's a pretty big step in not knowing anything. You show up and say like, "Hi, you'll be maybe kissing this person." So
yeah,
right. So just like Amanda Tapping, I arrived in my trailer in Toronto. I got uplifted and moved to Toronto for the filming of that, and away from my family. So there's a bunch of different elements, a little bit of, I guess, unrest. And she came and knocked on my door specifically, gave me a huge hug and said, "Thank you so much for accepting this." I'm like, "Accepting this? Thank you for giving me the opportunity," and that was a great start, just like anything else. It gives you that peace of mind to know that you're wanted and you're meant to be there. Even if subconsciously you felt it or knew it, the nice bringing it to the forefront was wonderful. And then, yeah, great people, great directors. All the cast had worked together, and they didn't keep you like an outsider right from the get-go. Brought me into their loop, and I just had a lot of fun. And then being away from family, I enjoyed being able to miss my family. Instead of just not being there and missing them oh God, I can't wait to get home. It was nice to remember all the reasons that I missed them and just be able to FaceTime and connect and just go, I love you guys so much, and I'm so grateful that I can get to go home and be a provider. And there's a lot of really cool elements there. And again, I'll say it again, so lucky to have a supportive wife who's like, "Go chase your dream. I know that you're going to be away. I got this. I got home, sorted, covered. You just go make some money and do what you love doing."
That's so great. And it's a recurring thing in your life, this the words that I would use, or that I kept writing when I was doing all my prep, was there's joy that emanates from you, respect for your family and love for your family, humble, and again, this sort of variation of jobs that you've done. And that's a really like massive kudos. There are not many working actors who I think cover such a broad spectrum and have remained so lovely with it.
Thank you so much for saying so. I mean, I would want to throw all of that right back to you. I'm a connection. Connection is my fuel for life. And, you know, like I feel like I connect to certain people. I think when I met you, I was like, this is a wonderfully beautiful and genuine human being. And that's why I'm jumped at this chance to chat with you, is just because like-minded and similar people in my radar of whatever that is, that's how I operate. And you know, you'll never hear about the people that I didn't connect with because it just falls by the wayside. I want to focus on the ones who reciprocate that energy and reciprocate that joy of life and the gift of what we get to do, whether it be acting or just a passion that you pursue. I have athlete friends and coach friends who are just so grateful and amazing for what they get to do. And I love that. I'm drawn to that. And I feel hopefully like I give that off so that I can connect with those people. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, continuing in our love fest, let's chat a little bit about your episode in Once Upon a Time, where you played Ivo, the blind father of Gretel. And it was Lana Paria's directorial debut. So I wondered, like, was it easier in a way because she's also an actor, that there's instantly this kind of shorthand, if you like? We know what's required. Not that a director doesn't, but I wondered if that made a difference to you in any way.
Well, you touched on it. A director is a director. Some of them might have come from the acting world, but there is a language that actors speak. And we can decipher between director and actor when they don't maybe speak the exact same language. And that's part of the fun and that's part of the challenge. Mm-hmm. But when your director is an exquisite actor and can come over and speak the shorthand to you in a way that makes you go, oh yeah. And you can find different layers and moments because of that within split seconds versus multiple takes. Or what a joy. And she is an exquisite actor, but she also was a wonderful actor's director. Yes, that's the words. She was a wonderful actor's director. So yeah, she would come in and she goes, that was great. I love this part of this moment. And I think it was related to, and you're like, yes, yeah. Can we add this layer of this? Because I feel like that adds and addresses this part. And I think the overall objective, you're like, yeah.
Done.
Roll the cameras. Let's do this. You know, it's just, it's so good. It was so good. And Once Upon a Time, what a franchise to be able to get
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was so gutted that doesn't film anywhere near where I live.
Oh, yeah, you've been amazing on that.
Maybe. Another incarnation. The next thing I wanted to chat about is where you played a villain. You were Traeger in Disney's, I'm not sure how you say this. Is it Mech X4? Mech
X4.
Right. Thank you. A shapeshifter, again, not an easy thing to kind of research, but playing the villain. How did you enjoy that, playing a villain?
As I get older, I think I'm really excited about playing the villains. Like,
oh yeah.
And it's beautiful because I can balance it with a Hallmark effort where I get to go to the full hope and love element and then go to the dark side of, and it's Disney, so it wasn't too dark, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Traeger was a shape-shifting wannabe dictator, take over the world type guy. And otherworldly, I had glowing veins and I was all red, and that took 5 hours as well. So there's a lot of early morning calls. And
yeah,
I had one makeup artist, Lanny, and Lanny was just a joy to work out with. We'd trade, bring in coffees in at 5 and 4 in the morning, and yeah, spray paint me from head to toe and have at it. But it was just, yeah, Disney has been wonderful to me. And even so much so I got to play Gabby Duran's dad on Gabby Duran and the Unsittables, another shape-shifting experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. Traeger was a lot of fun. Just, you know, lower your voice register a little bit and be mean.
Absolutely. You know? Yes, and come over and join us on the dark side. It's always fun playing the villain.
Indeed.
You were, yes, indeed, as our good friend would say.
Yes.
You were reunited with Robin Dunn from Sanctuary when you worked on the two-hander Devil in the Dark. Now, this is an interesting film because it's not your typical horror film, kind of psychological, lots of games and things. Tell us a little bit about that and how this job came to you.
So it's Mulligan's among the greatest experiences. This is right on par with it. It was, so Carrie Dixon, who's a really good friend of mine, we're now from that film, even better friends wanting to work and collaborate and write together. And it was born of that relationship that grew throughout that film. I want to throw kudos out to Robin Dunn. Could not have had a better scene partner to play with in that movie. He is hilarious, super talented, and just so present. You know, I mean, Jenny Garth in The Time to Dance, sometimes you look across and, you know, you're just getting the words back. Other times you're getting that falling into their eyes and going to that euphoric other place. And Robin was that guy too. We were brothers in the movie, and I felt like brothers on set. And kudos to him. I'm grateful. That made that experience wonderful. It was collaborative in that the director and Carrie and who wrote it, they allowed us and afforded us to build with them the scope and range of the relationships and whatnot. I adored every second of that. Even though we're out in the middle of nowhere with ticks, is a legitimate problem with ticks that we'd have to get tick every night to make sure they weren't burrowing into our head or our belly buttons. There's just, you know, there was some not as awesome elements to it, but what an unbelievable experience. Like, seriously, up there with Mulligan's and Descendants is this film. And it was an indie. It was a, you know, $1 million indie film that found its legs, and then Sony picked it up and it got distributed. And I'm so glad, because I hope it leads to us making more films. And as much as it was a thriller, it was a brother's story. It was the tale of two brothers from two different worlds coming back together, trying to reconnect.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah. What was the question, Suanne?
You answered it. I'm sorry. Yes, there have been a lot of questions, and thank you everyone for patiently watching and waiting. I'm almost there. This is it now. The last thing I wanted to talk about was hot on the heels of Descendants 3. You guest starred on The Flash, playing such an iconic comic book character, King Shark. Was that kind of scary, walking into, again, a character that's been established in many different incarnations over the years, but a really well-known comic character?
The good fortune I had was that King Shark had shown up in the show in King Shark form prior to my arrival. So he had already established a baseline of what I could go opposite. I mean, that's the dark, meta, altered state, and I can bring it back. So I knew kind of by opposition to what they had shown, what I was wanting to do with the Shay Lambden human version. And it's multiverse, so there's so many freedoms afforded because it's multiverse. But maybe I am a little bit overly about connection and love and all that stuff, but that's just how I am. I want to throw some love towards Grant Gustin as one of the most amazing number ones. There's a few experiences, Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, when I was on Supernatural. They are legitimately the nicest, good old boys from Texas. There's no star factor. There's no anything that they could be afforded for 15 years of crushing it and being superstars, but they are just wonderful humans. Well, same with Grant. I had to climb in and out of the ocean at like 0 degrees water.
Yes, in the middle of January. Without a shirt on. How?
Just a pair of tattered jeans. Well, that's the stunt element. And that's why, again, it's a mindset. You just have to go and do it. If you say yes, which I always do, then you just have to go and do it. You said yes, go do it. Stunt guys will do things that but that's something I could do. I just mind over matter. If I don't mind that it's freezing, then it won't matter that it's freezing. So I just did it. And again, they had a hot tub there for me when I finally finished the scene. I could go and dive in there and thaw out. They definitely looked after me.
They had a hot tub for you? I love that. Between takes. That's very Hollywood.
They barged the hot tub in. They put it on a barge in case I had to, like, it was.
I love it.
Oh, so, I mean, that water was like, it's the kind of cold when you get in, it feels like your skin is tingling, ripping, burning.
Yeah.
You know, and they said, go to the bottom of the 6-foot ladder and then wait as long as you can so the water calms and then explode out. And
God.
Yeah, it steals your breath. So you have to take a second. Otherwise, you'll have about 0.1 seconds down. So I got in there and I waited for my breath to come back, and then I went down to the bottom of the ladder. I waited as long as I could, which might have been a whole second. I don't know.
Listen, you did it.
I did it. But to go back to Grant Gustin, he was probably the #1 guy for coming around, asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. Thank you for doing this. Appreciative of the effort involved to do it. Like, he's the Flash.
Yeah.
And he could have just gone, dude, do your job and don't make me look bad. Because, you know, like, I mean, but he's the exact opposite. He's like, are you okay? If you don't want to do this, we can figure something out. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Who are you?
But
he's just
Flash.
Well, he is the Flash. Just a great guy.
But again, I think, you know, just as we wrap up and hand over to the fan questions, like, it comes back to you, Dan. Like, I think the way people behave with you is how you behave with everyone else. And that absolutely, it kind of just seeps out of you, you know, and it's lovely. Your humility and your joy is kind of palpable. And it's a really lovely life force to be around.
Thank you so much.
My final question to you is, you've done so many things. Your career has been remarkable so far, and I have no doubt will continue to be remarkable once all this hideousness is over. What is the one thing that you haven't done yet from an acting perspective that you would love to do?
Whew. That's a nice, big, loaded question. I do, not to go back to it like 1,000 times, but every day on set's a great day. So just to continue working would be the gift of gifts. And I will work as hard as I can and be as professional and at the forefront of whatever I can offer to get that to continue. But I would really like to do a series regular to some extent, again, like the comedy one. And it doesn't have to be comedy. I just would love to have a series regular role to go through the journey of a character through an arc that goes through a series.
I mean, was just saying this to my husband last night. Sorry to interrupt you. But exactly that. Exactly. That's exactly what I want right now. We'll put it out there together.
But like the Hallmark, you get to tell a story, and it's a movie, so you get a start and a finish, and there's an arc there. But a series, you're going to get a bunch of curveballs, and it goes all over the place. And it'll be so wonderful to fall into that character and be able to fill it out over the course of a series. Mm-hmm. Because the nuances and the subtleties that would grow out of the experiences of each episode, it's intoxicating. That's like to delve deeper and deeper is so much, I think, part of our job, that to be afforded that opportunity through a series regular would just be phenomenally just soul-filling, creative soul-filling, you know?
Yeah. Well,
let's get a series together, Suanne.
I'm so there for it. Somebody's just typed in the Dan and Suanne show. I'm like, I'm there. Let's do it. Somebody write it. You write it. You're a good writer. Well, speaking of soul filling, you have filled ours. And so I am going to hand over to some of the questions. There are quite a lot here. And I'm going to start with some of the ones that people emailed me. So the first one I'm going to ask you is, from an acting standpoint, did you have one Wraith template that you used for acting different Wraith, or did you create a different persona to act out for each individual Wraith you played?
The Wraith were wonderfully varied. And I think just like in every world, you're going to have different personalities. So it was fun to find out what were they trying to do in the scenes and what were their objectives, so to speak, to go back to acting terms, and then create a character and personality around that with no precedent set. And I guess my favorite with no template would have been the Uber Wraith, because to me, he was like a big green alien biker badass. So I took a little bit from the, what would a biker, let's say Hell's Angels, if we are allowed to, would be like if he felt wronged, and then, add a bit of green and see what happened.
What is the role that you are most proud of?
Mulligans. Yeah, playing Nathan in Mulligans, I would have to say is my most proud, because it was at the right time in my career. It's telling a story that helped me solidify part of who I am and how I interpret the world, and gave me a nice foundation to venture into acting and just trying to be a better human all around.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Let's see, here's one. How was it to do a movie Plays Dad with Mitchell Hope?
So Mitchell and I became almost father and son, like, or maybe that uncle that you can say and goof around with, but definitely a paternal element for me, because I just love that kid. Like he's an Aussie. So it took me back to some of my Australian fond memories, which are many, many. And he's a funny, free-spirited, wonderful kid, and talented and good looking. And, you know, he is a great kid. So to be his dad was an honor, and to be able to know that even now, I did a live to test my live. Or no, I did a live a while ago just for fun because I'd never done one. And he came on to say hi, just because he's that great of a kid.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, so it was an honor to just be able to hang out and meet him and get to know him for who he was, not just as an actor, but as a great kid.
A mensch. Let's see. What have you been doing to keep busy during quarantine? Do you see these as well?
Huh?
Can you see these if I bring them up on screen?
Yeah, that's really neat.
Okay.
Yeah, Mustang Sally. Hi, Mustang Sally.
Mustang Sally.
See, somebody can sing.
You better slow the Mustang down. Anyway, sorry. So, Mustang Sally.
Go. I love your voice. I wish I could sing. What have I been doing during quarantine? I have legitimately been failing grade 6 math.
Listen, I don't envy you. What a nightmare.
Oh. I've been a coach, and I can coach because I understand sort of, I guess innately, or having been through it, I can take young athletes and help them find revelations in sport and physicality. But to teach math concepts is apparently not within my wheelhouse. And my son's in grade 6, the older one, and he did all these problems. Then he came over and he's like, Dad, I need help with one. I'm like, confidently, bring it over, son. We got this. Yeah. And so I read it. And also I put my kids torturously through Francophone, not French immersion, but full Francophone school, because I think another language is wonderful. Yeah. And I speak French fairly well, but not to the extent that, you know, doing math problems. Anyway, I translated.
Très bien français.
Ah, merci beaucoup. Toi aussi.
C'est vrai.
Thanks. So this first question is, like, there are 382 parking stalls in this parking lot and 1,396 tires. How many of them are motorbikes? And yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I told him, son, the answer you should write is probably a bunch. And then just pray for creative points and then become an actor.
Yeah. I mean, the terrifying thing, I really feel for families right now who are having to do this, and who, I mean, I have the utmost respect for teachers, even more so now. But, you know, really for families who've had to educate their children during lockdown on things that you may not be very good at or know.
And my kids are still young. Like, it's just going to get worse and you know, there's talk that it's going to be the same way in September. I fear for my children. It's not fair. I mean, it's not fair for everybody. We're all in the same boat, and I don't want to complain, but I'm nervous about having to be responsible for my children's education in the way that I had to for the last, and they're only in grade 6 and grade 3. Can you imagine they're in grade 10? Like, Dad, what is I don't know.
No, no.
I don't know.
Oh, well, to like
Fingers crossed.
Your kitchen is getting a lot of love. A lot of love. People are loving your tiles, your cabinets. Your kitchen's getting a lot of love.
Well, this kitchen, this is my dad's cabin. I'm out at Mara Lake. We'll just quickly show. There it is.
Oh, my God. It's so beautiful.
It is wonderful. So my dad kindly lets us come out here and get a little escape from the monotony and repetitiveness of Groundhog Day during COVID and quarantine. And I've come out to unwinterize it, you know, power washing and all stuff. So I came out ahead of my family. I'm all by myself. So this is my dad's cabin kitchen. I'll let him know that you love it.
Yeah, for sure. And all the fans are loving it. So do you have to audition for stunt roles? And if so, what sort of things do you have to do at the audition? Do they throw you off a building and say, good luck?
Yeah, I'm going to punch you and see how you take it. No, the stunt actor roles, yes, because there's an acting element. They want to make sure that, yeah. But the stunt role's a bit different. The coordinators will interview you, or they know you. It's a pretty tight-knit group. It's a community that is fairly aware of everybody else in it. And if you're new to it, they'll ask around. It's a not nepotism. That's not the right word. It's word of mouth. It's by word of mouth. And yes, if I am physically right for a role, they'll call me and go, Dan, I've heard a few good things about you. Do you think you'd be comfortable doing this? And I have said no when I don't think I can honor what I, again, go back to what a stuntman needs to do to show this story, what it needs to be shown. So, but if I can, I'll say yes. And if I tell them no, but I'm willing to learn, are you willing to take that chance on me? I've been so fortunate with wonderful stunt coordinators going, sure, man, you fit the physicality. I trust in your physicality from what I've known of you and people have said. So let's have at it. And that's why we do rehearsals. Yeah,
exactly. Here's a question. You played the super soldier in many Stargate episodes and earned the nickname Codpiece. How uncomfortable was that costume to wear?
My favorite moments are with Peter DeLuise always calling for, he's like, can someone please buff that codpiece? You know, like he's always...
Everyone, all the women in the group, I will. We can't say that anymore, though. We're not allowed to say that.
Yeah, right. There's an amazing young lady, Nancy, who was in charge of looking after the rivets and the pieces and all that stuff, and she was just spectacular. She had no hang-ups about anything. We just both went about it professionally, but people did tend to throw a little bit of joking and mocking around our way. We just took it in stride and kept going. But yeah, they built that suit specifically for me. It moved brilliantly, and you know, there's a bit of vision concern because I couldn't quite see, like a lot of it from Mark's. I'd have to look out the bottom of the helmet to try and get on it without, because between here and here was blind. So, you know, like there it is, and then there it is. Yeah, there were challenges, but as in every character in every facet, whether it be creature or not, there's challenges, and it's just fun to try and rise to them and hope that you do so.
Yeah, absolutely. If you weren't an actor, what other job would you love to do?
If I wasn't an actor?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm teaching an acting class, audition class, and I love coaching, teaching. I think that because of my previous experience in sports, I would have loved to be a high-level coach helping elite athletes find that next level. I enjoy the revelations I see in young actors, finding their instrument and learning to build their process to best support their career. I think that would be the same thing, but maybe as a coach of a sport, probably volleyball.
That's actually a good question. And I know somebody in one of these sessions, because I feel like we've been here for 5 years. I'm sorry. Not that, I mean, you've been fascinating. I didn't mean it like that. I mean, no, you really have. I meant just because it's taken us quite a while to get going. But somebody at some point typed in, what advice do you have for an actor who is starting out at the beginning of their career? It's something that comes up quite a lot, I think, for actors. So what would your advice be?
Study, take class, and get to the point where you can feel that you need to start becoming aware of your instrument and how it can play. It doesn't matter where you're at, you know, beginner experience, we're always learning. So never fear that there's learning to be done. Just find out where you're at and start the learning process from there. And then when you get comfortable enough and you feel like your process is in a place where you can get an agent to start getting that, you know, odd gig to pay for your training, then do that. And just it's an industry based on no. There's a lot of rejection, and you have to understand that it's not personal, that you just need to continue to build your scope of abilities to be within the realm of getting, and buy your tickets back into the room. Don't ever think that you go into an audition to get that job. I don't agree with that notion. I think it's to buy tickets back into that room, because there's always a million reasons where you're not going to get a job. There's only one reason why you will. So make sure that your consistency and ability to prove to that casting director that you can act will get you back in that room until it is your time. So study and find the peace of mind to know that this is a learning process for everyone involved, and just enjoy that journey. Absolutely. Good advice. I'm just going to do another 2 questions, and then I'm going to let you go. Did you love to play a beloved Disney character? Well, we've sort of answered that, haven't we? But do answer it anyway, in case they've just joined us. Yeah, after I got over the fear and trepidation of stepping into a classic Disney character role, yeah, it was an absolute joy. Disney is another one that's full of vibrance, color, and I think the thing about Disney that I love the most for me is that my kids can watch shows that have moral messages and wonderful intent to help us understand and learn, you know, especially with the Descendants thing. It's inclusion. It's don't judge a book by its cover. It's, you know, we all are on the same plane. Don't let preconceived notions judge before you know. And to be a part of those things and play a classic character at the same time in this vibrant world of Disney, yeah, totally honored.
Absolutely, and you're wonderful in it. Somebody's asking, have your kids seen Once Upon a Time? And
They have. My kids watch. I've been grateful for them to watch a lot. It's funny because my kids, I don't know if they're desensitized or what, but they're like, yeah, that's you, Dad. Good job.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's just to a point until somebody somewhere else, someone that they idolize or something goes, hey, Dan, suddenly then it's going to be like, my dad's an actor, man. He's famous.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it, Suanne. Suanne, going to school in the mornings after Descendants 2 came out. I drop my kids off at school. I love taking them. They can take the bus, but I love driving them to school. It's a little bit of time with them in the morning. So I drive them to school, and they get out, and I walk up, and then I'm still that dad. I know it's going to go away, but I give them a hug or a kiss, tell them I love them before they go to school. I know that's going to be embarrassing as all heck soon, and they're going to be like, don't do that. But at the moment, I get to the schoolyard edge and say goodbye, and the most amazing thing for me is to be cool to my kids. And the way that I ended up being cool to my kids is a bunch of kids ran over and said, excuse me, are you the Beast in Descendants? And I was like, oh, yeah,
you're like,
yeah, I am.
Yeah, take that, kid.
Yes, son. So that I was like, yeah, I am. Thank you so much. Did you watch it? Did you enjoy it? And they're like, yeah, it was amazing. You're awesome. Thank you. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And then they go away, and my kids kind of look up going, oh, maybe my dad's not a total nerd. So that's
kind of cool.
So that element's cool. And then Once Upon a Time was a similar thing. It's more actually The Flash and Descendants where people have come up going, do you know your dad's King Shark? Or do you know your dad's Beast? And then I kind of get to go inside going, yeah, you tell these boys so the dad
you're like,
cool. Yeah. Dad wants to be cool.
My final question is, what was it like working with the Muppets? That's not mine, actually. That came from Claire.
That was very unique. So where the Muppets actually travel, the floor is cut out.
Really?
There's puppeteers in the floor, so everything's raised, and they're walking around with the puppets on their hands, and you have to be wary of stepping over,
falling in the hole.
Yeah, like falling in the hole. Yeah.
Hey, Kermit.
Yeah. I'm just wondering. So Joan Cusack, I got to work with her. Oh my gosh! Like,
I know. I actually tweeted tonight that we were going to be discussing our mutual love affair, because when I saw that in an interview that you were like, you got starstruck meeting Joan Cusack, I was like, as if I couldn't love Dan anymore, and now I do. So tell us about Joan Cusack.
She's brilliant. Like, her instrument plays so freely. Like, it's really hard not to get caught watching her while you're on camera with her. You're like, like, Dan, huh? Oh yeah, yes. So just and hilarious. And it was neat to see that she's not as worried about the lines. She's very much invested in being there, present, finding the beats and comedy and moments in it. So she'd be playing along, and then she'd like, line, and she's like, sorry, I was loving what we were doing there, and I forgot. It's, and I'm just like, I'm loving you, period.
Yeah.
And then the other cool part was Pepe the Prawn, the puppeteer who does Pepe the Prawn, doesn't break character between takes. And he's a stand-up comedian, straight up through and through, nearly like peeing myself laughing. Makeup was coming in like, oh my God, tears again? What is your problem? And I'm like, the prawn. I blame the prawn.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so it was wonderful. It was so much fun. And, let me just throw a shout out to Kirk Thatcher, who was the first director, to give me a chance in comedy. That was prior to Alice, I think. I came in, I got to be, a buffoonish goof, which is not far from the truth. And he was so supportive. He's like, I'm looking at you and I don't see funny, but when you perform, you're brilliant. It takes a lot of smarts to play dumb, and you play dumb brilliantly. And I think he was weirded out when I crawled over the table and hugged him, but I don't care. It was the biggest compliment ever, and it was the birth of a beautiful friendship. I'm still friends with Kirk to this date. I go down to LA every once in a while, and I've stayed with him. I love that man. And not just because he complimented me. That's not the truth. He's just a wonderful man. Like, he is a comedic genius in his own, like, beyond whatever you think as a director. Why he's so good is because he's a genius. in both comedy and direction. So yeah, I just want to throw that shout out there because I love that guy.
Well, I think that is a perfect note to end on, because you have been a wonderful man tonight. You have talked to us for nearly 2 hours. And what a fascinating career you've had, from sci-fi, fantasy, drama, comedy, Disney. I mean, there's so much to you. And I really, really hope that people have gotten to know you a little bit better and got to know the Dan that we love and get to know and hang out with at conventions.
Thank you. Well, this has been an honor, and thank you so much for letting me share. You are fantastic at this. And I think I just want to say it again. Part of why you're so fantastic is you are extremely genuine and welcoming, and that just, you're exuding it through this tiny little screen even. So thank you for making this wonderfully comfortable. And I could do this all day with you. You're fantastic. So let's do that series so we can.
I'm so there for that. I will email you after this. And also, I look forward to giving you a big proper hug when we can, when we are next reunited, whenever.
I'm welcoming with open arms,
Exactly. Well, stay safe, my friend. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us in the beginning. Yeah. And for staying on. So you guys, you're just so lovely. Oh, thank you. Some friends have just said some very nice things about me. So
yeah.
It's very nice.
Oh, she is genuine. Yes, absolutely. In person too, for if you haven't met her.
Thank you very much. And guys, everybody stay safe. We are on week 13 of this and week 5097 of lockdown, but we're all getting there. The world is slowly inching its way back, I feel. And it's been such a pleasure to share my weeks with you guys and have you checking in, and wonderful guests. So I'm just so grateful to everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you may be. And this will be up on the YouTube channel shortly, and of course on Instagram TV in a minute. So have a lovely day, and thank you again, Dan. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. Thank you, Suanne.
Bye.